What's going on?
Wow, look what we're starting with, huh?
Well, okay. I wasn't going to originally start with this, but I realized this thing has 35 minutes left. And it's actually
225.
But it's a 225. So like right before I started this, I texted the guy that I bought mine from, like that owns Hummer and has really done a great job with mine. And I text him periodically when stuff like this comes up. And a lot of times it's like, man, thank you so much. This is just another example, man. This is a 2003, so this isn't an Alpha, but I mean all of them are pretty rare. It's well built, and I didn't so much want to bring it in as what are your thoughts, but I just kind of I saw the 30 minutes left. I saw 225. I'm like, man, this thing is every time one of these goes for over 200,000, and it keeps climbing little bit by little bit. I am elated. I'm so happy.
How many miles does it have on it?
What's that?
How many miles does it have on it?
It's a brand new. Like I think the TMU is fairly like 4,000 or 5,000 miles or something. Although I'm kind of wondering because it had I thought it got built a little while back, and somebody's driven it for a couple of years. With that said, I mean, one of these built up. You have two classes of cars that are kind of like 10 plus year old, 15, 20-year-old cars. And older, you have like resto mods, which are kind of becoming a little bit more popular now. And they're practically new cars. So, I mean, they'll last. You can daily drive them. Some of them are electric and stuff. Can you have an electric resto mod? Yes, because I mean the engine doesn't have to be anything specific, right? So technically, point being, you have brand new brakes, you have brand new everything, right? It's a brand new car, but it's got an old look to it. Might even have some of that soul. And so these are practically that, because the Duramax engines that they're swapping these are the LBZ, which is the year that came after the Alphas. And they're the best Duramax that there is, at least prior to emissions really getting much more strict and them having to do a lot more jumping through hoops to meet California emissions at least. So this is practically resto mods, which is why they're fetching such high valuation. I mean, they're not just restored Hummers, because a 2003 Hummer barely does 50 miles an hour on the freeway. Still probably drives like shit. This thing is just, it's got that classic feel, but it's a new truck.
Because the year that it falls in, right? It's a 2003. You're replacing the entire engine. Where does smog come into play?
Sorry. It's a 2003, so you have to replace it with a newer engine, I think it is, than the year of the vehicle that you have, right? Like you can't drop like a.
I don't think you can replace the engine without it being basically the same one. So I think visually, it has to look the same, right?
No. The engine can be newer. Your emissions regulations are fixed to the vehicle, I believe. But you definitely can't put an older engine into the car that you have.
Yeah,
I know that. So as far as smog goes, I think you're still beholden to the diesel smog regulations. I wonder, would it be for the engine you have or for your vehicle? Because the 2003, same as the Alpha, in California, it's a visual inspection, which means it's a visual inspection at idle, which means I can blow black smoke out of the exhaust when you start the car, as long and when I hit the gas, barely touch the gas, but as long as at idle, everything's good. There's no sensors, there's no nothing, which is lovely. It's like having a classic car pretty much, because I don't want the thing really blowing black smoke in my driveway anyway. I don't want it doing it anyway, but at all. But definitely, like when my daughter's walking around the car, I'd rather it not really be excessively toxic, right?
They did a good job on it though. But see, this is the thing: the 2003s. I think you and I were talking about it before. It's like I'd rather have that than what you have in Alpha, because then I can butcher it and make it my own and not feel bad.
Yeah, you could do all this because, like, you see the sensors, or you got the meters right there on the side. Like, they had to cut in and make that happen. And on mine, even getting the new suspension put on, and I have air inflation, deflation now, a compressor on there, and adjustments. I ended up putting it up underneath, or Hummer Core ended up putting it up underneath the fuse box panel. There's a panel that you open to access the fuse box in the cab, and we ended up putting it up under there because I told them, I'm like, guys, I don't want anything changed. Even the roof rack, it's just a bolt on. Like, I don't want the body drilled. I don't want the interior, because there isn't authenticity to, and just a I think an art to keeping something like that in its prime. And in its prime doesn't mean that you put a ton of custom work on that's going to butcher the original work, and then you can't ever revert back, because there was only there's less than 700 Alphas ever made, less than 11,000 Hummers ever made, H1s, and so you got to keep that. I mean, that thing might end up, if not in a museum one day, it certainly belongs in a in somebody's collection that's probably worth 100 times what I am. So and I hope that probably happens someday if my daughter decides not to bury me in it like I requested. But I'm borrowing it for now. I'm taking care of it for now. But when I get it back, I want it to be original. Now, 2003, and butcher the heck out of this thing. Put custom suspension on, and nice, great engine, big brakes. Like, just do everything. Why not?
Yeah, I'd go to town on that thing. That's why I was looking at it and I'm going, I think for me, I just don't care enough to have the Alpha. The only reason I want the Hummers to have it, and then truly just go to town.
Yeah,
they did a nice job on this one. This is clean.
Yeah, well, this is Predator too. Like, and their trucks fetch a good and price, and they're way backed up. They have way more work than they can access, or than they can fulfill right now. So I know people are waiting for years. And even when I was at Hummer Core last time, the guy said some of the trucks are going to be there for over a year. They're that backed up in some sense of, like, some of the fabrication work and some of the custom work that they're doing. So when you get something like this, it's a very nice, just well built, clean product, and it's a brand new truck. So this will last you as long as you want to use it. But it's a beautiful car. I hope it goes for a lot more. Best apocalypse vehicle ever, almost. But that was one of the considerations when I was putting new when I was replacing the shocks, and I'll probably do a separate video on that. But when I was replacing the shocks on this one, on mine, there were three options. The original OEM shocks, they're the Monroe, like AutoZone like shocks, and on a car that weighs 4.5 tons, you're going to wear those shocks out pretty much when you drive it down the street after leaving the dealer, right? And so mine has almost 90,000 miles on, still original shocks. I was feeling a lot more bumps than I thought I would, especially driving a Hummer. And so went to replace those. Well, when I was looking at the options, you had the Monroe, like, OEMs. CPEC makes a custom one that they came out with, I think, in 2010 or 2012. But they look original. They're a little fatter, but they fit in the same spring, and they look just almost like the original one. So it doesn't really change the appearance of the truck. And then there's obviously the guys. Hummer Core also does Raptors, a lot of F-150 Raptors. There's several other, like, Rebel off-roads around here. They do a bunch of Jeep builds and stuff. Like, so I can go get like ARB or King or one of those suspensions, but I'd have to modify the control arms. I'd have to probably the CVs could probably stay, but you'd have to do a lot more work around there. You'd have to weld to the actual frames. I didn't want to change the character of the vehicle. So I went with the CPEX, very happy with them. So far, they've been great. The one thing I haven't done is taken them off-road. So I can't wait to do that. I've been very tempted to one of these times after putting baby to bed at like 7:30, 8 o'clock to just go take off up the mountain and go hit San Diego Peak. It's about 2 hours to the top and then about 2 hours down. But I have all the floodlights for it, so it'd be fun.
I'll tell you this, I don't think it's an accomplishment if you get it done in the Hummer. And I'll tell you one reason why.
You've done it in the Mini?
I've done it in a two-wheel drive Ford Ranger, so.
No, definitely not an accomplishment, but it'll let me test the suspension a little bit. And actually, when you get up there at night, it's nice. There's a peacefulness to it, especially being on top of the mountain.
Trying to do it with the Mini sounds interesting.
Dude, we should. Your father-in-law's raised Mini,
off-road ready. Yeah.
Off-road ready. Let's raise yours up and
no, mine.
Get
no.
to it. No,
that's gonna be a hard no. That's gonna be a hard no. Mine. I went the opposite direction. I lowered mine. He raised his.
Yeah, but we were talking about possibly raising it up a little bit more, right?
Yeah. He's working on the spacious to do it now. We're probably gonna switch out the control arms for the bigger Mini, the Countryman, to give it a little bit more travel.
So what do you think about Maseratis?
Hands down, one of the best sounding cars and one of the worst ones to own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my I have two distinct experiences with this with a Maserati. One of them was actually it might have even been this one. Like, where's this one from? No, Texas. Well, maybe. But the first time I remember, I think I just graduated high school maybe, and my girlfriend at the time was playing soccer. I was with her parents, and her dad wanted to take a look at like a car that was nearby at a Ford dealership. So my wife had gone off with her friends to go eat or something, and we ended up at the Ford dealer. They had a Maserati, but it was a four-door, and it was very similar to this one. I guess it would have been around 2008, 2007. And so, but it was like a four-door version of this. Dude, the thing looked and felt so heavy, so ugly, and I've never really liked four-door Maseratis. Fast forward to about 2019, and a sweetheart of a man that was my wife's boss had one of these. It was a black with a red interior, Gran Turismo MC coupe. Guy always has some nice cars, but he let us house sit and insisted that we take the car out. And he insisted specifically he had a Model X Tesla for his wife, and it was like right when they were first coming out. And he had one of these, and he insisted that we take this to Napa Valley and go do some wine tasting and everything. And so one thing that it had in it, when you get in, it has one of the buttons. You open up all the exhaust, and you get that like low rumble when you're idling, and obviously sounds very different. That was my first time I've ever driven anything like that. And it was cool. Like I honestly enjoyed driving the Tesla X like way more at the time. And actually, well, no, I probably would enjoy driving this more now. But the thing I do remember was every time we rolled up to a winery, it was the funniest thing because usually, you just kind of look for parking. Every time we rolled up to the winery, like if valet was there, they'd make room for us up at the front, which was interesting. Maybe it was a little bit newer than this one. But it has that like nice look, but the guy's a surgeon. So it was a surgeon car. You don't have to be a car guy really, but if you want to like have like that nice thing. You know, Maserati is probably the way to go, but the thing sounded so nice. I loved just having the windows down, and just hearing it. The only car that probably stock sounds that nice that I can, and it's just, I'm sorry for the comparison, but my 350Z,
No,
like there's just a tone. It's a perfect sound.
Your comparisons are like by far so bad. Like, and oh, by the way, this one has a power button. You know that too. Did you want to bring the Prius up too?
I'll save that for later. I'll save that for later. I got later.
I do agree. It is probably one of the best sounding stock cars out. And it's kind of like one of those things people tend to look at it as kind of a poor man's Ferrari, seeing as you're basically looking at the same build in the engine. But I've always been a fan of them. It's one of those guilty pleasures as a car guy. One thing, did you notice how long that car was?
Yes. Oh my gosh!
It was strikingly long. It is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it was very long. Was low. It felt like if you took like a Mercedes SL or something series where it's still kind of like a bougie nice car, and then it had like a Ferrari sounding motor, and isn't it a Ferrari motor?
It's basic. They don't say it directly, if I remember correctly, but it is a Ferrari sounding. It is a Ferrari motor, but to me, it sounds better than the Ferrari by a mile. And the only ones worth getting to me are the MCs or like the Stradales, which have all the body kit and the aero package, slightly different exhaust, all the carbon fiber bits that you see on there. I had one for about 2 months, and as a car guy, it was great. But every time I turned on the car, the check engine light would just seem to stay on longer and longer and longer till eventually it just stayed on.
Yeah.
And so it's just what you signed up for when you got that car. You know, depending on how good the build quality was, the leather would start peeling back from the dashboard. The buttons rubbed off super easy. I've seen one with like 3,000 miles, and all the radio buttons are all completely smudged off, just because the quality of it is just not there. But then you turn the car on, and all those issues just kind of fade away.
Oh, interesting.
Especially when you're sitting there hammering on it, and you come up to a light, and you're in fourth gear, and you just want to be a total douche, and just pull the paddles back and drop it straight into second, so you get that nice pop and gurgle on the way down.
Yeah. I guess I didn't realize that the interior. Yeah, the one I had was a little newer, but I guess I didn't realize that the interior had that kind of build quality. I was actually kind of impressed. It did have like a nice feel to it.
The seats and stuff are great. The dashboard had issues. I know in the early productions they did big time, and somewhat further on down the road. So if you go back one picture, you can kind of see the gapping on the dash right there. See that starting to lift right there by the windscreen.
Right there.
Yeah. So you get some of that weird stuff, and it either happened to you or it wouldn't. And like, you go to the radio, and the buttons there would start to, like the inking or the screening they do for them would start to smudge or chip. Chipping was a big thing. But you're looking at a brand that's trying to create a premium sports car on a very tight budget.
Because of the size of the company, or what?
Yeah, I mean, you can see the size of the company and what they're bringing in. I mean, if you go back a couple pictures, you can kind of see some of like that peeling in the plastic near the radio. It's especially in the off, and where you can see the park, you can kind of see that in there. You see where it says ice, and you can see how it's kind of like, you can see that clear coat a little bit.
And even there, a little bit right there.
And it's just it's unfortunate.
Sport button there.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I'm surprised the sport button is still in good shape as it is. That means the person probably didn't want to hear the exhaust that often. You see right there, like it's scratched so easy. Look at that.
Yeah.
How many miles does this one have on it? Like to me, that's
24,000. So actually, it's not bad. So obviously, I guess going in a slightly different direction. The value that these haven't held value. Like none of these have held value.
Never did.
if you ever want a
particularly
cheap,
good.
yeah, if you want like a cheap poor man's Ferrari that's a few years old, I mean, these are really dropping in value, because I think these brand new were selling for 140, 150, and this is back in 2012. So this is like the bottom of the financial crisis, like right when the turn was happening, and you're still paying 150 grand for a car if you got any money.
Yeah.
And so for these to go to, actually it didn't even sell to bid to, but I'm kind of surprised, because actually when I looked up the range of pricing here, it looks like that's right around like on the low end of what kind of where it should be. So I don't know if the reserve was maybe around 40, but I know that BAT kind of encourages them not to have a reserve, or keep it low, because they want cars to turn. I don't imagine they don't want cars to sell, or to not sell. And so I would think that that price is actually like reasonable. That like the market is telling you that's what the price is.
Well,
So,
you can't ever, see, like if you go down there, that 2015, that Centennial Edition, that's the ones that would generally hold some value. It's a more limited production,
mhm.
But at the same time, it's one of those cars just was never going to hold its value. And like you said, you could buy yourself a cheap Ferrari, quote unquote Ferrari, for that price.
Mhm.
But in the end, you're just buying yourself a cheap headache, because although you're paying 30 grand, you're getting somebody into that car. Something goes south on it, that you're paying some sort of, astronomical amount to do like a plug or a coil change if you can't do it
Yeah.
yourself.
You're taking this to a Ferrari dealer, or it has to be? I guess it's a Maserati dealer, some exotic car.
So you're taking it to a Ferrari dealer, yeah.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, so that's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah, you could take it to a Maserati dealer, but they're gonna. So, for example, like here in Newport, you have Ferrari of Newport. I don't know if Maserati's still attached, but deeper in Irvine, you have the hub where they take all the Ferraris and all the Maseratis to get work done. So it's still going to wind up there, and you're still going to be paying that price. But again, it's a guilty pleasure car.
Yeah, I kind of feel. I've kind of looked at older like Aston Martins, and don't have me for this, but like older Aston Martins for that kind of too, right? Like you have some of the ones from like this era, like the early 2010s, like James Bond, Vanquish, and
You'll be getting like the DB9s around this.
DB9s.
The standard DB9 around this price. You won't be touching a DBS around here. You can get like a Vantage, standard Vantage V8. I got my Vantage V8 for I think 41 with 10,000 miles on it. And then the V12s I think are somewhere in the 90s. So like the Aston Martin, their limited editions, or race versions, or like their AMG style, are going to be way more expensive and hold their value. The rest of them are going to do the same thing the Maserati did, is just tank. They're just going to take a shit out of nowhere.
They've recently had some nicer Maseratis come out too, right? Like that's they're starting to come out, like kind of like McLaren. They're releasing their
right. So they're going a different direction. They have that MC that's like 300 grand.
Right.
So it's not the typical Maserati buyer. The typical Maserati buyer was a lease purchaser. They would drive the car right up until the point it started breaking, and then turn it in and get something else. Again, another one that you mentioned you didn't like was the 4-door, the Quattroporte GTS.
Oh yeah,
that's a great Maserati. Oh yeah, here you go. Talking about the poor man's car, poor man's Austin.
Poor man's Austins, yes. Poor man's Ferrari. This is a poor man's Austin right here.
Yeah, so it's
8K miles.
8K miles XKR. I've always wanted one of these. So another car that sounds unbelievably good stock is the Jaguar XKR, is the XKR S, which is a little bit harder to find. But you're looking at 510 horsepower, somewhere north of 400, I think 450 foot-pounds of torque, 461, somewhere around there. But it's just, there you go. There's the S and the white.
Do you know what year these ranged?
The XKR was since like '96, so you get different ones.
Well, this version. Well, I guess okay. So here are the 2014s. 7
Yeah.
days. So you've gone for. Oh God, that's terrible. But the rest of them held value pretty good.
Well, it's different. You look at the ones that they have up there are the
57.
XKRS, which is an even further limited edition
Oh yeah.
than XKR, and it's got all the body work on it, trying to be, you know, a little bit more aggressive than it is. I just think it's one of those cool cars that, you know me, like I like those forgotten cars, and that's something that I would have in the garage next to an Aston. So I'd have both, just to say I could.
Is this along with like was it the GTO that came out in like 2006 or 2007, like that kind of year car too, like kind of, and
that's
no, but like,
yeah,
but like that type of car where you're like you don't really expect, or what's the one? All I remember is Jeremy Clarkson doing a review on it on Top Gear, and it was like it's like a British car or something. They got the body, the door, chassis frame is like way too far forward, so you have to like climb forwards out of the car to get out to the side.
That was the Alfa Romeo.
Alfa Romeo, yeah.
The Giulia.
Yeah, that's like this type of car, right? Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense, but
yeah.
Which is, by the way, the Alfa is another car I want. But to me, it's 500 horsepower, supercharged. It's a Ford motor, so if you know what you're doing, it's actually pretty cheap to work on, and you can do a few things, and that thing's gonna be putting out 600-700 horsepower in a Jag. Yeah. Nobody's gonna expect it. Nobody's gonna be thinking that when it comes out.
Oh my goodness! Look at the interior. That's beautiful. That's actually very clean. I get the Aston Martin vibes from it for sure.
Yeah, and you know it's got more power than a DB9. It's got more power than the Vantage. So, to me, and there's a guy in right before I moved to New York that I'd be driving on and getting on the freeway at the same time every single day, and his license plate was ICBM missile. So, yeah. And the sound that thing made every time he took off from the green light on the on-ramp, and I'm just sitting there trying to shift just to keep a speck in my frontal vision in my Mini Cooper. It's amazing. It goes along with what you're saying about the GranTurismo. It's just this great sounding car, underrated, and now I'm just getting more excited to go out and buy one.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you were driving, because the actual picture of Robert that I had was like you were standing on the corner of the street, like about to cross the road. Like you weren't working the corner of the street. You were standing there. You're going to cross.
That was a long time ago, but yeah.
It was a different life.
You're
about to cross the road. It's been raining maybe that morning, but probably not raining now. But now, like this, you see this thing, you're like, man, that guy's living. And all of a sudden, he takes off. You hear this noise, and you just get splashed with mud and all this crap, and you just. That was what I had in my mind, and then you're like, oh yeah, I was driving. And I'm like, oh okay. Well, whatever you're driving, you could have been in I don't know, a Ford Mustang or something. Still would be better than the Robert that I had in my mind a second ago. So we're good.
Yeah, that's a really depressing version.
Yeah, but no, man, this thing's beautiful. I was actually very impressed with the interior. So I'll get to that here in a second, but oh my gosh, it's just clean.
Yeah.
Because when we saw the 2012 Maserati a second ago, like it was still, it wasn't refined and clean. Look at this one though. Like this one probably looks like it's a later 2010s. Like this almost looks like a new, minus the giant displays, like a newer like Mercedes or something, or Audi, where you don't have a shifter sticking up here. You don't have, everything's kind of like tucked away, super clean, super nice. Even the buttons are very kind of nicely just placed.
Yeah, they had that cool little trick gear shift where it popped out, and then You kind of.
Oh, it's one of those. Okay.
Yeah. See it right
Yeah,
there in
yeah.
the center.
Yep.
So it's a cool car. It's not something you see that often. It's something that if you saw it driving next to you and you heard it take off, like I keep saying, you wouldn't expect it. You wouldn't expect that car to have 500 horsepower. So
Yeah.
I think
What do you think this goes for?
it's at what 5 right now because it's 7 days
Well, it's a
out.
5. There's 7 days left.
8K miles, my guess.
But when I pulled
40,
the
45.
filters here, it actually looked like it might even go for a little more. And by the way, I'll add that the zombie apocalypse vehicle that we did was it 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
I think you were within like $1,000. I think it closed at 257, and you were like 255 or something when we spoke about it. So dead on, man. But this one, just the 2014s, and like you said, the XKR was kind of throwing this graph for a loop here. But
Yeah.
I mean, they were going for almost like 60s, kind of the median here, right?
I would say
It's less mileage.
45 to 55 is going to be where it's going to be at. It's a unique color too because it looks like that purple.
Oh, these are S's too.
Yeah, those are all S's. XKR.
So only this one here is
yeah,
2 of them.
That
39 and 51. Okay.
Yeah, I think top end is going to be 55.
But this is a vert.
Close to 45.
So this is a vert, so you have that probably bonus $1,000, $2,000. No, it's nice. It's clean.
This is the small things too. I think people forget when they go and sell like a unique car like this, they don't do when they picture. What's the one thing that stands out to you on this, if it stands out to you?
That they don't do in a picture?
Yeah.
Or just in general, what stands out?
They don't do to enhance the look of the car. It's the dry tires. Imagine if that thing had actually buttered up tires, how much sleeker it would look. If those tires.
Go ahead.
No, as I said, those dry tires pull away from the actual finish of the car because you see this really big knobby treading on it. It's actually a performance tire. It's all that small stuff.
Yeah, my initial thought though would be the paint too. It's kind of hard to see what color. Is. Yeah, it almost looks like a dark brown, dark purple, or something. But then,
I think you're right on with dark purple and like that chocolate interior. But that's another thing. Like, there's so much light you can't see the color of the car. But then the inside are pictures that are taken inside a garage or something like that. But it's those small things that make the difference when you're going to move one of these cars.
Yeah, I always wondered that about because some of the cars, even the ones you don't expect, really have wonderfully done pictures. Like I know that there's places all around the country that'll do it for you, and I don't know what BAT specifically provides for that, but and I'm sure they encourage you to do it. But it definitely seems to make the world a difference just to show off the car. And plus, you got to figure most of these people can't come look at the car in person. And I've even bid on cars, like a lot of money on cars that were in a different state. And so you're going off of like the Carfax report, and you're going off of some maintenance reports, maybe I know Porsche does it, and a few others like the shop review that they'll publish paper on it. Yeah, but outside of that, like pictures is all you got. So it's interesting. I'm surprised this guy wouldn't, especially for a car that's on BAT and you're expecting to get 50 or 60,000 for it.
It's all that small stuff that people don't realize, and they don't understand why the cars don't pull the money. I mean, I paid money for pictures to be done to cars that I knew weren't expensive. The $200,000-$300,000 cars we had were getting the same cost pictures as the $5,000 to $10,000 cars because of the difference it made and the value it brought. So
yeah, there was an interesting thing I was listening to a while back about. I think it was like one of the guys that was on YouTube that's like very well known. Does a lot of has a lot of views and stuff. And he was saying one of the things that he talks about too is that some people, yes, they put out content and everything else, but one thing that he was encouraging is that the difference between a view that gets like 1 million views and a view that gets 100,000 views is only a little bit extra editing, but it's really, really refined and good versus like kind of all right. And it seems like for like sales and investment too, you really want to try to wrap the best bow around this thing that you can and present it in the best way. And like you said, like a nice detailed job, like you're paying probably $80 to get the car washed anyway. You might as well pay 150 and have them like really, detail it.
It just makes the world of difference on stuff like that. Just a random thought I had was when I was looking at these pictures and when I saw it earlier, I was like, I don't know how you missed doing that. And if Bring a Trailer, somebody is going to make a comment about that. Guaranteed.
Is it going to be you?
No. I refrain from playing in the comment section.
I don't know. Some of the comments are okay. I feel the need to participate in the Hummer one because I'm that guy. But outside of them, I try to stay away if I can. Other than drooling on some of the other nicer things that I see here and there. Rolex.
Well, seeing as Collector's Bids is more than just the car stuff we've been on.
Yes, sir.
Like I know you're not super deep into watches, but you're kind of getting there, a little bit more interested in it.
I'm trying to learn. I'm excited. There's a lot to learn there.
Right there's a nice rare Rolex that you're looking at. Is everything has like a cool little random name that's not designated by Rolex, but like that would be the Hulk, all green. But if you purchased a Rolex like 5 years ago, right now you're looking at, depending on the model, like a GMT, a Yachtmaster, Daytona, anywhere from 10 to 25, even 30% increase in value of the price. If you're looking at like APs, you may have purchased a watch for 65. Right now, 170 grand is what it's worth. With this whole influx that we were talking about last week of this new money, this crypto money that came in, this NFT money that came in, all these things started getting popular. Those are the Daytonas. So little tidbit for you there. That's the Panda in the white.
Nice.
All the black one. But yeah, we'll stay away from that one. But it's a good investment if you know what you're looking for in the watches. And Rolex obviously has probably the cornerstone in high-end watches in the sense of, if you think you're going to go buy an expensive watch, what's the first thing people say they want to buy?
Rolex. It's like buying Johnny Blue. Like what happened when I was like, hey, I want nice whiskey. I go and buy Johnny Blue, right? But then you introduced me to a whole other side of whiskey, and Belvini and some of those others are just delicious that actually have some class too. But yeah, you're right. Like if you're gonna go give someone like a nice watch, or you want to suck up to your father-in-law and you maybe have some money or whatever, like you go give them a Rolex, right? Like that's the one that you get. But it's I don't know. I've never really enjoyed the look itself. But Rolex look aside, and we'll probably say that for a different discussion. It's interesting because when money supply constricts, like we're going to see here, you still got to figure the wealthy still have money, and they still have money to spend, and they're also looking for tangible assets, especially during inflationary times, to park some money in. And so tangible investments are like actual assets in a market that is specifically for a wealthier crowd that is generally not going to be so susceptible to, say, gas prices or to the price of the hot dog at Costco or something. By the way, fake news. And that market is still going to be trading this stuff for a premium. Like it's not probably it's very unlikely that it decreases by 50%, by 80%. Where you've seen even stocks like reputable ones to do that. I've lost a ton of money in like Amazon. You have a 40% decline in that. That type of stuff. These tangible assets actually continue to appreciate. And to your point, like the best investment I've made in the last 6 months has been the Hummer. Like I shook hands on it for 140 last September. There have been price comps going from like the low 200,000s all the way to Barrett Jackson selling one of them for 657,000. It's probably the only asset that I have that has like substantially appreciated, whereas real estate has stagnated. You have a lot of the equities and stocks, even bond outflows and decreases. So I think you make a great case for these being a reasonable allocation of a part of wealth, and it'll continue to hold value.
And it's one of those things too, though. It's like, move real estate aside, because we all know that fluctuates, and it's pretty cyclical in the sense of like how you're going to be able to anticipate what it's going to do. The watches are just like the cars, right? So if you get a standard Nissan 350Z compared to the Nismo, right, you're always going to pull more money with the Nismo. And that's kind of how the Rolexes go. It's kind of how the Omegas, all of them do. The APs, the ones with French names that I can't even pronounce, make a difference. Like this, the Hulk is a very rare color scheme, the all green. Typical you're going to see is the black. You have stuff like the Batman, the, what else? The Pepsi can, the root beer.
What investment beats stocks?
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It is what investments beat stocks right now. Some of these are watches. And it's just a market, I think, like you said, it's the upper class wealthy that are in it, but may not be as deep into trading it as you would expect, like they would be on cars, right? Because it almost comes off like an accessory versus an investment. And I think you're going to see a turn of that real soon.
Yeah, it's also probably it doesn't seem like you have quite the trading, other than maybe eBay and a few others, that quite the infrastructure set up like you have around like automotive trading for watches. And I know several friends that are into this type of stuff. You and another one in particular that are really big into it. Although the difference between the two of you, and he's much more bougie, much more bougie, and that's not denigrating your you. That's actually more of just guy's pretty bougie. He likes the nicer things. But it's funny because you send me stuff about Grand Seiko, and his comment about Grand Seiko specifically is like, I acknowledge that this is a nice watch and it is a different, nicer tier of watch. It's not his thing because he's more of the I'd rather have my Rolex. From a guy that would probably yeah, he's the type of guy that would definitely sport a Rolex or something. He even appreciates like a Grand Seiko, which so it's kind of fun, kind of learning about the watches. Going back to you were saying, I'm learning more and more about them. There's a lot of character, a lot of soul around these type of things too, whiskey included, and cars up too. So it's going to be a fun several next decades for this market too. And I would add specifically more around the great inheritance that is coming, I think, in that there's a whole generation of wealth that's kind of trapped in the baby boomer era. And as that money trickles down to their kids, whether they like it or not, I mean, it's just the nature of how that happens. There are going to be individuals that just kind of spend it on whatever. And our generation tends to do that more. We like to spend money. And so you're probably going to see assets like these, the trading of them increase several times over in the next coming decade or two. I really think there's something there.
It really is, and it's funny, like you were saying, there's not really anything foundational, functional about trading these watches. And the one thing you do run in with high-end watches is frauds, fakes, right? So that's kind of what the issue tends to be a little bit more. But yeah, it's like you said, there's also two different people, the bougie people and then the people who see it different ways. And for me, it's like I have a Rolex, I have a deep sea dweller, and The one where I wear all day, every day is my giant Seiko tuna can, and it's the one I enjoy the most. I don't like wearing the Rolex because it's too flashy for me. But it's, I think, a market that's up and coming. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I had a really nice Citizen that my wife got me as like one of the ones I picked out. I was kind of getting into watches at the time, and I had my original 350Z. And what happened was it kept scratching up, and I love this watch, but it kept scratching up the door handle. There was like a little like a rubber coating on it, and it kept scratching it up. And I remember by the time I got rid of the car, that area, and on most Zs, when you look at the door handles on them, on the 350Zs, that happens to a lot of them. And anybody that wears a watch or has anything on the wrist or bracelets or something, that area just wears big time. So it's it seems to be a problem with that specifically. But let me see here. I wanted to bring up, I think it's this. What? Oh yeah. So what the heck? I can't seem to bring the picture up because I took it actually on the Prius today. But what the heck?
Okay.
You know the yellow crap that ends up on your car?
Yeah. Yes.
And it's in droves. Dude, I was wondering what in the world is that? I end up cleaning it off the cars almost the only thing that ends up on the car if it sits out in the driveway, unless it rains, is that yellow crap, and it seems to come from from nowhere. So I finally did a Google search, but do you know what it is?
Oh, I do know what it is, and I've known for a long time after detailing cars for so many years. Yeah, it's owning a black car for 10 plus years. Yeah, yes. Now, what did you discover that was so fun about it? You were surprised to hear.
It's bee poop.
Yep.
Like, I didn't realize so many bees are shitting on my car all the time.
Yeah.
And I gotta thank you. Like one of the things that you introduced me to, especially when I told you I was getting the Hummer, you're like, you have to go to Chemical Guys and buy up all these products. And so, for multiple reasons, partially being the bee poop, partially because I can detail my wife's car, for instance, in the garage at night after I put baby to bed. I haven't washed the cars with water in the last several months. Is that okay with like quick detailer and stuff like that? Like it seems like that's all I use now all the time because it's nice. It leaves a little coating. Anything that gets on it comes off easier the next time. And like the Hummer right now, like sits in the driveway. Other than cleaning the bird crap off, the bee poop, I use a little bit of quick detailer, and it's gone. Thing is shiny. It looks perfect every day. Super easy. So I was wondering just what the protocol for that was.
If you ask me, I think it's perfectly fine. It's one of those things where it's, when my car was in the garage, it would get pulled in, I'd get out, wipe it down every day. So all I would be accumulating is the dust from the day, probably some harsher particulate that landed on there that might be scratching the clear coat a little bit, but nothing so terrible at all.
If only I can get my wife to do that every day when she comes home.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. That's what you're there for.
There's no way.
But I think it's perfectly fine. Like I use from them, I either use the quick detailer or the VO7 spray wax, and it gets done on the cars on a regular basis. Like the CBR, would go out for a ride, come back in. As soon as it came back in, quick wipe down, so there's no dust anywhere. And I've never found any issues with them.
Well, it's funny because I also kind of feel like, because I'm always doing it to the Hummer, I feel like that neighbor, when like my neighbor across the street sees me and I'm always detailing my car, and it's like a really, really nice car. So I guess you can give me that. But I know that like it's roughly around a particular time and they happen to be coming home every day at that time. And I'm like out there detailing the car. It's like, man, this homeless, well, I guess he's not homeless because he lives across the street, but this bum that doesn't go to work, that is always outside detailing his super tank. Can I call it a super tank? I think it's a super tank.
Nope.
It's a supercar class. It's got to be. There's like 700 of them made.
You can call it
several $100,000.
I'll give you
And it's
super wagon.
like a tank. Super wagon.
Maybe
I'll take it.
super wagon. Because a tank, you're looking more into those other ones that we're looking at. Remember?
Yes,
Like
like the other military grade ones.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure how to like look that stuff up. So I'm like, Google got me, right? So I typed in exactly what I was seeing, yellow crap on my car, and sure enough, look at this. Google. This is why you're one of the biggest companies in the world. Simply put, it's beep boop.
So you know what I found interesting, which I don't know if it's a direct correlation to it or not, but I switched over from the quick detailer to the VO7, which doesn't smell as sweet. And I found there to be less of beep boop. So I don't know if that's a direct thing or just it's a happenstance. But
is the VO7 a is that the polish stuff that's out, or
yeah, it's the quick detail polish.
Oh, okay, but it's still it's still designed as a quick detail.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, when I switched over to that, I was like, oh, it just happened over time. I was like, oh, I'm not detailing as much, or I'm not wiping down as much. I don't see as much of that stuff on there anymore.
Interesting. I had one buddy who recently moved to San Francisco, and he's got a nice S6 Audi, and he black.
Can we pause you there for a second? You said Audi, and I'm so proud of you right now.
Not Audi.
Yes, so happy.
Yeah. No, it's Audi. I think
it is Audi.
Audi.
It is Audi. Yeah, it is Audi.
Is that something I've been doing, or something that just you hear other people say?
That's something you've been doing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if we're on it, talking about Aston Martins, Aston.
It's an Aston Martin.
No, there's an Austin Healey AUSTIN. There's an Aston ASTON. It's like the same
Aston
thing
Martin.
Me, and I feel like I'm having a stroke reading your sentences.
yeah, you're not the first person to bring that up. Yeah, I'm sorry.
What does he talk? Like, what is he referencing?
It's notes. You know, when I write stuff, it's like notes for myself, and it doesn't have to make. It's like chicken scratch. It's like doctor's notes.
Yeah,
like
but I don't understand your notes for your mind.
Yeah, well, because you're looking at my notes for my mind, not necessarily yours. And then,
this must go over real well with the wife.
Yeah, well, she's learned to read my mind, because I tell her if she expects me to read hers, at the very least, she has to start reading mine. And there's not much to it. It's usually pretty simple. To her credit, she's like, the other day, I forget how she brought it up, but she's like, no, if you were going to show me something on the phone, it'd just be like a Hummer thing. I'm like, I'm not always showing you Hummer things. I mean, like, some of the time, yes, it's a Hummer thing. I'm like, look at this like person like driving this thing through the snow and like doing donuts. Like, that looks like fun. And I feel like I need to share this with somebody. So like I should send it to you. And then my wife happens to be sitting next to me. So I'm like, hey, look at this. This is pretty cool. And she's like, stop bothering me. It's 3 a.m.
It's really similar on my side, because it's like, Art decides to share something. Phone on the nightstand vibrates. Wife looks over and says, oh, I wonder who that is.
Yeah. But anyway, so my buddy moved to San Francisco, and he was taking care of his S6 Audi, and I told him about the stuff I've been doing with chemical guys, and I told him how I love that I can literally go in the garage at night and just detail my wife's car, and it'll go from like she's been driving it all week and some splatter here and there to like just beautiful new, and it has a clear coat on it. I do every couple of years, but it's or ceramic coat. I added on it and try to refresh every couple of years. But one thing that he brought up was interesting. He said that he was worried about like particulates or like rocks or anything like that scratching it as you're detailing. I don't know if water would remove some of that. With quick detailer, for me, it's a white car, so I'm not too concerned about seeing the little micro scratches that I would leave behind. On a black car, it's a little different. I don't know if you had input about that.
You do have it, but with my car, I haven't run into those issues. I'm using good rags, and then if it's questionably dirty, where I feel like there's going to be something more than just dust. I mean, you can tell, especially in a black car, because you can see it across, the paint. Where if it's something that's just dust or like an actual rock particulate style thing, I use the waterless wash, which actually captures it. You do one quick swoop, and then you move on to the next spot, and then you come back with a quick detailer. So you're adding a little bit extra step. That's generally if it's a little bit dirty, further on than just that coating of dust from sitting outside for a day. But I've not run into any issue with it. My dad has his black BMW, does the same thing. No issues with it there.
Yeah, I think the only one that I'd consider, I'd probably roll back if I like went up in the mountain and the car got really dirty.
Yeah,
like, I wouldn't obviously use it. Just start with a quick detailer. I'd hit the power wash station on the way home. But outside of that, like I don't see myself it takes me 20, 30 minutes to go over my wife's entire car and like some soapy water over the windows. And the thing is shiny and new, looks great. She doesn't notice, of course, but like at least when I see her leave for the day and wave by, at least I'm not like cringing because she's driving a $150,000 Tesla down the street that looks like it needs to be taken to the car wash. So I don't know. It's like one of those things that just it like hurts me inside a little bit when I see that, whether it's on my car or somebody else's.
Yeah. That's what I would do the same thing. Come home, detail them both, put them away. Anything.
Yeah.
All of them. So.
Yep. All right, man. Anything else for this week, or we'll wrap it up here?
Not that I have. Nothing.
All right, brother. I'll catch you on the other side.
All right.